Hey everybody, welcome to Taboo Talk with Sarah, the podcast where we break the silence, foster hope, and have the real, raw and messy conversations that matter. If we haven't met yet, I'm Sarah. I'm a wife, a mum to 3 amazing boys, and we live in the beautiful island state of Tasmania, Australia. Now, life here is pretty special, but let me tell you, it's also real, raw and messy, and very unpredictable, filled with challenges that sometimes we just don't talk about enough. And today's episode is one of those conversations. We're talking about asking for help. It's one of those things that we all know we should do, but most of us don't. In fact, we avoid it like the plague. We tell ourselves we've got it all under control. We don't want to be a burden. We're strong enough to handle it all ourselves. I've got it all under control. The simple truth, though, strength isn't about doing it all alone. It's about knowing when to reach out, when to ask for help. So in this episode, we're diving into why it's so hard, what it is that holds us back from reaching out and asking for help. Talking about some times in my life where I've resisted asking for help, resisted receiving help, and the difference it made when I actually opened up and accepted it. And how community, vulnerability, and support systems are what creates real strength. We'll talk about some practical ways you can start getting comfortable with receiving help without guilt or shame. If this hits home for you, please keep listening, because I promise you're not alone. Asking for help is something we all struggle with from time to time. But before we go any further, I want to take a second to thank today's sponsor, because this episode wouldn't be complete without letting you know about something that's made a complete change in my own mental wellness journey, and that's Happy Juice. If you haven't heard me talk about it before, it's been a game changer for me and my family, and it's because it works on your gut-brain connection. Our gut is basically our second brain. A lot of our neurotransmitters are formed in our gut. And that's why what's going on in our gut can affect everything else. So Happy Juice is an all-natural blend that supports your gut health, boosts your serotonin, and actually helps you feel better. I started using it when we were navigating Harrison's MS journey, and it has made such a huge difference. If you're curious about how it can support you, check out the link in the show notes, because taking care of yourself isn't a luxury, it's a necessity, particularly if you are caring for other people. Because if you collapse in a screaming heap because you haven't taken care of yourself, then who's left to take care of them? Just something to think about. So why is it that it's so hard to ask for help? For most of us, it starts with the stories we tell ourselves. The belief that asking for help means that we're failing, that we should be able to handle everything on our own. Strong people don't need help. I call BS on them. But let's be honest, many of us have been let down. We've reached out only to feel dismissed or unheard or misunderstood. And over time, we start to believe it's easier just to do it ourselves. What I've learnt though, those beliefs, they're not facts. They're stories we tell ourselves. And the beautiful thing about that, we can always rewrite the story. We can change the endings. I used to think that if I asked for help, it meant I was weak, that I was supposed to be able to hold it all together, keep it all together. But that mindset only left me feeling exhausted, isolated, on the edge of burning out. Maybe even did burn out just a little. I learned that the true strength isn't about going solo. It's knowing when to reach out. Back when I believed I had to do everything on my own, I was caring for my mum through her cancer journey. Harrison was a small baby. I was pregnant with my second child. My first two were born very close together. There's only 17 months between them. I was carrying the weight of all that on my shoulders, and I told myself, hey, I should be able to handle this. Mum cared for me when I was sick. Wasn't it my turn to do the same for her? My sisters were older. They had their own lives, and I'd convinced myself that it was my responsibility, and it's something I would do again in a heartbeat, but I'd do it different. I was drowning. I was exhausted. I was overwhelmed. I wasn't dealing with my grief at all. Cancer had changed my mum. It made her go from this vibrant, amazing woman who, when I lived in the UK and she came for a holiday, we went to the Channel Islands. We're walking along a beach in Jersey. She sees a boat in the distance and says, hey, let's go to France for the day. She didn't speak a word of French. That didn't stop her because she said I knew enough to get us in or out of trouble. Watching that same woman be afraid to go down the street for a cup of coffee in our local town, it was hard because she'd become a shell of herself. But I wasn't dealing with that. I was just getting through the day and bottling it all up. And I just kept pushing forward. There'd be times when I'd break down and I'd start snapping at people, and I was having trouble sleeping. But hey, I had a tiny baby too, so who sleeps when you've got a kid under one or around one? To be completely honest, I'm not sure that most mums get anywhere near a decent night's sleep for probably the first 10 years or so. But anyway, I was struggling and I felt like I was failing. Eventually, after Mum passed and Lachlan was born, Jeff and I decided to pack ourselves up and move to Tasmania for a fresh start. The only problem with that, when you don't deal with your problems, when you try to run away from them, all that happens is you carry them with you. And we did. Things didn't get better. If anything, they got worse. Jeff was at his lowest point, struggling in ways I didn't know how to fix. I didn't know how to help him. Several times I was ready to walk away from our marriage because it felt like it was all over bar the shouting. It felt like we were both trapped under the weight of everything, but we were refusing to acknowledge it at all. We just kept bottling it up, pushing it down. Then one day, I was talking to a friend, and completely out of nowhere, tears caught me off guard. I broke down completely. It all just came tumbling out. All of it, everything. I ended up a complete dribbling mess. But looking back, I'm kind of glad I did. Because that was the first time I'd let out all of that stuff that I'd been bottling up. It was the first time I admitted I was struggling and I couldn't do it alone. And that was the moment where everything changed. I started leaning into community. I started to realize that the people around me wanted to help me, that I didn't have to hold it all together and pretend that everything was fine when it wasn't. I didn't have to be strong all the time. And the thing that made the biggest difference for me, and it's part of why we started this podcast, was sometimes it just helped to have somebody listen so I could go, actually, I'm not okay. Things really suck right now. But just being able to say that to admit that there was a problem meant that then I could actually do something about it. And if I could go back and tell myself, my younger self, anything, that's what I'd tell her. Stop holding it all in. Stop pretending everything's okay when it's not. You can't solve a problem until you admit that there is one. And sometimes the problem is trying to hold it all together all by yourself. We're not designed to do life alone. We're built for community, for connection, for support. We're made to help each other. There's a reason it's said that it takes a village to raise a child. We're all children and we all need our village. I hope if you're listening and you feel like you're carrying the world on your shoulders, please know this. You don't have to do it alone. There are people who care, and when you let them in, that can be when everything changes. If you're listening and thinking, I know I need to ask for help, but I don't even know where to start, let's make it simple. 3 small steps to get comfortable with getting the help you need. Start small. It doesn't have to be a huge meltdown and opening up your whole world to somebody. It can be as simple as accepting an offer to go out for coffee with someone. Let a friend pick up your kids for you. Ask for advice on something minor. Start small and build that muscle. Getting good at anything takes practice. And asking for help is one of those things that it takes practice. And shift your mindset. So often it's I don't want to be a burden. I'm strong, I can handle it. You need to think about it. Giving and receiving are 2 sides of the same coin. If a friend was struggling, would you hesitate to help them? Of course not. You'd be right there. So why not let your friend be there for you? And the biggest thing that I have found that makes a difference, find your people. Not everyone is going to be equipped to give you the kind of help you need. So surround yourself with people who genuinely have your back. Whether it's family, friends, mentors, a support group, lean in, find your tribe. And if you're still thinking, but I don't have a community like that, then let Taboo Talk with Sarah be your community like that. That's what we want to build here, is a place where you can know it's safe to have those difficult conversations and to know that you don't have to do it alone. Because sometimes the person right next to you could be struggling with the same thing you are, and you just need to talk. So I hope this episode has given you something to think about. Maybe even permission to let people help you, to let people in a little bit more, because we can't help if we don't know what's going on. If this message resonated with you, share it with somebody who needs to hear it. Because, like I said, you never know when the person right next to you might be the one struggling in silence. And you saying something could make the difference for them. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you want to keep this conversation going, join me on social media, drop me a DM, or check out the resources in the show notes. Now, before I go, I just want to say again, I am not a mental health professional. If today's episode brought up some heavy emotions for you, and it may have, please reach out for support. There are incredible professionals and helplines available. I've listed some in the show notes. So if you need that step, please take it. If you are struggling and you need help and support, please reach out. And as always, for everybody, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and remember, your story matters. You matter. So please keep telling your stories. I'll see you next time.